Pip was a very small sparrow, with feathers as soft as dandelion fluff. He lived with his mum, his dad, and his two sisters in a cozy nest, high up in an old oak tree. The nest was made of twigs and moss and was ever so snug. Pip loved his home. He loved watching the ladybirds crawl up the leaves and the wiggly worms down below. But there was one thing Pip did not love. He did not love the idea of flying. Not one little bit. His sisters, Fliss and Flap, would hop to the edge of the nest, their little wings fluttering with excitement. "Look, Pip! The world is so big!" they would chirp, their voices full of joy. Pip would just shuffle back into the middle of the nest, where he felt safest. The world didn't look big to Pip. It looked wobbly and far away. He would peer over the edge, and his tummy would do a funny flip-flop, like a fish out of water. The wind whistled in his tiny ears, and it didn't sound like a friendly song. It sounded like a giant's huff and puff, ready to blow him away like a stray leaf. Flying wasn't about seeing the big, wide world. For Pip, flying was about falling. A long, long, long way down. "It's too high," he would whisper to himself, tucking his head under a stray feather. His mom and dad were the most wonderful flyers. They would swoop and soar through the air, their wings catching the sunlight like magic. They brought back juicy caterpillars and sweet berries, their beaks full of treats. "Soon, little one," his dad would say with a kind look in his eye, "you'll be up here with us. You'll dance on the wind and race the clouds." Pip would nod, but his heart felt heavy, like a little stone. He didn't want to dance on the wind. He wanted to stay right where he was, in his warm, safe, not at all wobbly nest. He wished his wings were for snuggling, not for flying. One sunny morning, the day came. It was flying day. Fliss and Flap were practically bouncing. They wiggled their wings and did little practice jumps on the spot. "Ready, Pip?" they chirped, their eyes shining bright. Pip's beak felt dry. He looked at his own little wings. They felt flimsy and weak, like paper. He watched as Fliss took a deep breath, hopped to the very edge, and then, whoosh! She was gone. A moment later, Flap followed, a little wobble, and then she too was floating on the air, her happy chirps echoing back up to the nest. Now, it was just Pip, and the big, scary, empty sky. Pip stood alone at the edge of his world. His little legs were trembling so much the whole nest seemed to shake with him. "You can do it, Pip," called his mum from a nearby branch. Her voice was warm and gentle like the summer sun. Pip took a tiny, shaky breath. He closed his eyes tight, counted to 3, and gave a little hop. For a split second, he felt nothing beneath his feet. It was a horrible, empty feeling. But instead of soaring, he tumbled. Down, down, down he went, not like a bird, but like a fuzzy brown stone. He flapped his wings in a panic, but they just tangled up. Luckily, he didn't fall far. He landed with a soft thump on a thick branch just below the nest. He hadn't fallen all the way to the ground, but he felt just as low. He clung to the bark, his heart thumping like a drum. He could see his sisters swooping in graceful circles, their laughter carrying on the breeze. They weren't laughing at him, he knew, but it felt like they were. It felt like the whole world was watching him fail. Shame washed over him, hot and prickly. He wasn't a bird. He was a clumsy, tumbling thing that belonged on a branch, not in the sky. "Try again, my love," his dad called out, his voice full of encouragement. "Just a bigger flap this time." Pip watched his dad demonstrate, a powerful and easy sweep of his wings. It looked so simple when his dad did it. Pip took another deep breath, trying to be brave. He pushed off from the branch, flapping his wings as hard as he possibly could. He went up a little, then sideways, then mostly down again. He landed in a bush full of leaves, completely tangled and upside down. A single sad tear rolled down his feathery cheek and dripped onto a leaf. It was no use. He was never going to fly. He managed to scramble out of the bush and hop back up the trunk of the tree, branch by wobbly branch. It took a very long time. When he finally flopped back into the empty nest, he felt exhausted and defeated. He tucked his head under his wing and pretended to be asleep. He didn't want to see the sky. He didn't want to hear the happy chirps of other birds. He just wanted to disappear. "I give up," he whispered into the warm darkness under his wing. "I'm a nest bird, and that's all I'll ever be." The world felt gray and quiet, and Pip felt very, very alone with his sadness. Later that afternoon, as the sun began to paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Pip felt a gentle nudge. It was his mom. She didn't say, "You must try again." She didn't say, "Don't be silly." She just sat beside him, tucking him under her warm, soft wing. They sat in silence for a long time, just watching the world go by. Mom's wing felt like the safest place in the whole world. It was even better than the middle of the nest. It smelled of sunshine and home. She didn't need to say anything. Just being there was enough. It made the big, heavy stone in Pip's heart feel just a little bit lighter. "Do you remember when you were a tiny egg?" she whispered, her voice a soft rumble. Pip shook his head. "Well," she continued, "you were tucked inside a shell. It was dark and snug, but it wasn't where you were meant to stay. You had to be brave and peck your way out into the light. It was hard work, but you did it." Pip thought about this. He had been brave once before, even if he couldn't remember it. He had broken out of a shell to get into the world. Maybe, just maybe, he still had some of that bravery tucked away somewhere deep inside. Then his friend, a wise old squirrel named Squeaky, scurried onto a branch nearby. Squeaky had seen Pip's tumbles. "Flying isn't just about wings, little one," he chattered, flicking his big bushy tail. "It's about belief. You have to believe your wings will hold you before they can. Think of a happy thought. Think of the juiciest berry you ever tasted. Let that happy feeling lift you." Squeaky then scampered to the end of the branch and took a mighty leap, sailing through the air to another tree. It wasn't flying, but it was a brave and joyful jump. Pip watched him go, a new thought fluttering in his mind. A happy thought. What was a happy thought? Pip thought about the taste of a sweet summer strawberry. He thought about the feeling of the sun warming his feathers after a cool rain. He thought about snuggling between Fliss and Flap in the nest. He thought about his mom's soft wing. As he thought these happy thoughts, a strange thing happened. His own wings gave a little twitch. It wasn't a scared, panicky flap. It was a hopeful little flutter. He looked at his mom, who gave him a gentle, encouraging nod. The sky didn't look quite so scary anymore. It just looked quiet and waiting. Pip hopped to the edge of the nest one last time. The sun was setting, and the wind had softened to a gentle whisper. He didn't close his eyes this time. He looked out at the beautiful, colorful sky. He took a deep breath, but this time he didn't fill it with fear. He filled it with the thought of a sweet strawberry. He filled it with the warmth of his mom's wing. He remembered Squeaky's big, brave jump. He looked at his own little wings, and for the first time, he thought they looked strong. He believed. He believed they could hold him. He believed they were made for the sky. With his happy thoughts lifting him up, he pushed off from the nest. He gave a flap, a real strong flap. And then another. He wasn't tumbling. He dipped a little, But then he flapped again, harder, and he went up. He was doing it. He was actually flying. The wind that had sounded so scary before now felt wonderful. It lifted him up, holding him gently, as if it were a soft hand. He let out a chirp, but it wasn't a scared peep. It was a loud, joyful, triumphant sound that echoed across the evening air. He was a bird. He was a flying bird. He could see his nest, a tiny cup in the giant oak tree. He could see the whole world spreading out below him, not wobbly or scary, but beautiful and amazing. He saw his mom and dad and Fliss and Flap all flying towards him, their chirps full of pride and joy. They swooped and danced around him, a happy, flying family. Pip followed his dad in a big circle, feeling the air rush past his feathers. This was what it was all for. This feeling of freedom, of joy, of being exactly where he was meant to be. He wasn't a nest bird, he was a sky bird. As the last light of the day faded, Pip flew back to the nest with his family. He landed on the edge, not with a tumble, but with a neat little hop. His legs were steady and strong. His heart was full, not with fear, but with a proud and happy feeling. He had been scared, and he had failed, but he had tried again. And now he could fly. The sky was not a scary place to fall from. It was a wonderful place to be. As he snuggled down between his sisters for the night, Pip dreamt of all the new adventures he would have, dancing on the wind tomorrow,